I am Reed, I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. So let me start by being real with you. When I was like 20 or 21 years old, I had no idea what I was doing with money. I mean, zero clue. I was the guy who would get a paycheck and within 3 days it was gone, eating out every meal, buying random stuff I didn't need, paying minimums on credit cards I shouldn't have opened in the first place. That was my life. I thought I was living the dream, but really I was just digging a hole for myself, and nobody taught me any better. School didn't teach it, my parents didn't know it. My friends were in the same boat, so how was I supposed to know? But then around age 23 something clicked. I remember sitting in my apartment looking at my bank account and feeling this pit in my stomach. I had like $200 to my name and a credit card bill that was way higher than it should have been. And I realized if I kept going this way, I would wake up at 30 with nothing. No savings, no investments, no direction, just more debt and more regret. That scared me straight, so I started learning not from some flashy guru on Instagram. I went to YouTube, I read books, I listened to podcasts, and slowly I started piecing together a system that made sense for a normal guy like me. Now here's the thing about investing in your 20s that nobody tells you. Everyone says you should take risks when you are young. You hear it all the time. Oh, you have your whole life ahead of you. You can afford to fail. Be aggressive, take shots, but nobody actually tells you how to do that. They just throw the concept at you and expect you to figure it out. So I want to fix that today. This is the most efficient way I have found to invest in your 20s based on my own experience and my own mistakes. First, we got to talk about mindset, and I mean really talk about it because your mindset is going to determine everything else. If you go into investing thinking you need to play it safe and protect every single dollar, you are going to miss the boat. I have friends my age who keep all their money in a savings account earning like 0.01% interest and they think they are being smart, but inflation is eating their money alive. That is not smart. That is just slow and steady losing in your 20s. You need to welcome volatility. You need to be okay with your portfolio going up and down because over the long term, the UPS are going to way outpace the downs if you pick the right stuff. When I first started investing, I was terrified of losing money. I mean, terrified. I would check my portfolio every single day, and if it was red, I would panic. But over time, I realized that volatility is not your enemy. It is your friend. When you are young, you have time on your side. You can ride out the dips. You can buy more when things are cheap. You can afford to be patient. The people who freak out and sell at the bottom are the ones who lose. The people who stay calm and keep buying are the ones who win. It is that simple. Now, I am going to say something that might ruffle some feathers. Forget about bonds. I mean, completely forget about them. If you are in your 20s and you are putting money into bonds, you are wasting your time. Bonds are for people who are retired or about to retire. They are for capital preservation, not growth. You do not need capital preservation right now. You need growth, aggressive growth. The kind of growth that makes your money work harder than you do. So do not touch bonds, not even a little bit. And while I love telling people to just dollar cost average into a low cost index fund like the SP 500, that is not what we are doing in this video. Look, if that is all you can handle emotionally, then fine. It is better than nothing. But if you want to actually build real wealth in your 20s, you need to think bigger. You need to concentrate your portfolio. I know that sounds scary and it kind of is, but think about it this way. The richest investors in the world did not get rich by being diversified. Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett have both admitted that there were times when they had 75, 80, even 100% of their portfolio in one single stock. That is insane, right? But it worked because they understood those businesses inside and out. So what does that mean for you and me? It means we do not need to own 50 different stocks. We do not need to be spread thin across every sector. We need to find 1 to 3 high-quality companies that we truly understand and truly believe in. And then we need to put real money behind them. That is the efficient way to invest in your 20s. That is how you outperform the market. Now let me tell you about my own journey with this. When I first started investing, I was all over the place. I owned like 15 different stocks, and honestly, I did not understand half of them. I was just buying whatever people on Reddit or Twitter were talking about. And you know what happened? I did okay, but nothing special. I was basically just matching the market and taking on way more risk than I needed to for that kind of return. It was stupid, so I changed my approach. I sold off most of my positions and consolidated down to the ones I really believed in. My biggest holding right now is ASML, and it makes up over 15% of my portfolio. Some people might think that is crazy, but I want even more. I would love to have 25 or 30% in ASML if I could. Why ASML? Because it is the only company in the world that makes the machines needed to produce advanced microchips. No ASML, no Nvidia, no Tesla, no iPhone, no modern technology as we know it. That is a moat that is absolutely massive. I literally cannot think of a bigger competitive advantage than being the sole supplier of something the entire world depends on. And the really crazy part is that demand for chips is only going up. AI, electric vehicles, cloud computing, it all requires more chips. ASML is sitting right at the center of all of it. So yeah, I am comfortable having a big chunk of my portfolio in that one company, but I did not just pick ASML randomly. I looked at the numbers, and you should too before you invest in anything. There are 3 things I look for in every company before I even consider buying a single share. First, consistent net income growth. I want to see earnings per share growing at least 10% year over year consistently. If it is not hitting that number, do not even look at at the company. Second, share buybacks. I love when companies buy back their own stock because it means my piece of the pie gets bigger without me doing anything. It also shows management believes in the company. Third, high return on invested capital or return on capital employed. I want to see at least 10%, but ideally 20% or more. That shows the company is using its money efficiently to generate profits. If it cannot clear that bar, is not worth my time. Let me walk you through ASML as an example so you can see what I am talking about. Their earnings per share has been growing like crazy over the long term. Sure, there was a small dip recently, but I understand their business cycle, so I am not worried over the long run. It is going up and to the right at a fast pace. Revenue is doing the same thing. Top line and bottom line both growing strong. Free cash flow is solid, and they have way more cash than debt. Peter Lynch once said, "It is really hard for a company to go bankrupt if they have no debt." ASML is sitting on a pile of cash. They are not going anywhere. Their return on capital employed has been over 30% for the past 4 years. That is absurdly good. It tells me they have a clear competitive advantage. Their margins are steady and slowly growing over time. Everything about this company screams quality, but ASML is not the only one. Let me give you another example. MasterCard. I only own about 1 share right now because I've been putting my money elsewhere, but I plan to buy more. MasterCard shares a duopoly with Visa. Basically, every time someone swipes a card or taps a phone, MasterCard gets a tiny cut that adds up to billions of dollars. Their numbers are amazing. Growing revenue, growing earnings, high margins, very little debt, and they have such a long runway ahead of them, especially as the world keeps moving away from cash. That is a high-quality company with a massive moat. Now, I know some of you are thinking, okay, Reed, this sounds risky. What if I pick the wrong stock? What if the company crashes? That is a fair concern. And I am not saying go all in on some random penny stock you found on a forum. I am saying do your research, use free tools like Seeking Alpha or Yahoo Finance. I personally use a platform called Quarter to look at financials. But you do not need expensive tools. You just need to be willing to put in the work. Read the annual reports, understand the business model. Look at the numbers I mentioned. If a company passes all the tests, then you can feel confident putting real money behind it. And here is something else I learned the hard way. You do not have to be 100% concentrated. Even a partially concentrated approach can work. Maybe you put 30% of your portfolio into an index fund for peace of mind, and then the remaining 70% is split between 2 or 3 high conviction picks. That is totally fine. The point is to have a strategy that makes sense for you. For me, I am comfortable with a more aggressive approach because I am young and I have time to recover if things go wrong. But you have to know yourself. If you are going to lose sleep at night over a 20% drop, then maybe dial it back a bit. The most important thing is that you actually stick with your strategy through the ups and downs. Now let me talk about something that might surprise you. Crypto. Specifically Bitcoin. I used to be super skeptical of crypto. I thought it was a scam. I thought it was just speculative hype with no real value. And honestly, a lot of crypto probably is. But Bitcoin is different. At least that is what I have come to believe after a lot of research. So here is my take. You do not need to go all in on Bitcoin, maybe allocate 10 to 15% of your portfolio to it. That is what I do. Why? Because Bitcoin has a capped supply. There will only ever be 21 million coins. So in theory, as demand goes up, the price can keep going up, and it is not directly correlated to the stock market, so it gives you some diversification. Plus, the growth over the past decade has been insane. I am not saying it will keep growing at that pace, but even a fraction of that growth would be life-changing. I remember watching videos about how you just need 0.1 Bitcoin, and over the next 10 or 15 years, it could be worth a fortune. At first, I rolled my eyes, but then I started looking at the numbers and the trend, and I thought, okay, maybe there is something here. So I bought a small amount, then I bought more, and now it is a meaningful part of my portfolio. I am not telling you to go dump your life savings into Bitcoin. That would be stupid. But I do think having a small allocation makes sense for young investors who have a long time horizon. All right, so let me summarize the whole strategy because I know I covered a lot of ground. Step 1, fix your mindset. Stop being afraid of volatility. Embrace it. Understand that you have time on your side and that time is your biggest asset. Step 2, forget about bonds and low return investments. You are too young for that. Step 3, concentrate your portfolio. Find 1 to 3 high quality companies that you understand deeply and that meet the criteria I talked about. Consistent net income growth, share buybacks, high return on invested capital. Step 4, consider adding Bitcoin as a small but meaningful part of your portfolio. Step 5, and this is the most important one, stick with it. Do not panic sell when the market drops. Do not get greedy when it goes up. Just keep investing consistently and trust the process. I want to share a quick story about why this matters so much to me. A few years ago, I had a friend who was in the same position I was, young, broke, no clue about money, but he decided he was going to start investing. He picked a couple of stocks that he believed in, and he put money in every month no matter what. Even when the market was crashing in 2020, he kept buying. I remember talking to him and he was so nervous because his portfolio was down like 30%, but he held on and you know what happened? A couple of years later, his portfolio had more than doubled. He did not do anything fancy. He just stayed the course. That is the power of consistency and conviction. On the flip side, I have another friend who tried to time the market. He would buy when things were going up and sell when things were going down. He was always chasing the next hot stock, and he ended up losing money overall. It was painful to watch because he was a smart guy. He just could not get out of his own way. He let fear and greed control his decisions instead of having a solid plan. So please learn from both of those examples. Have a plan, stick to it, and do not let your emotions run the show. Investing is boring most of the time. The exciting part only happens in retrospect. While you are living through it, it feels slow and uneventful. But that slow, steady growth compounds over time, and that is how real wealth gets built. I hope this video gave you something to think about. I know I threw a lot at you, but I really believe this is the most efficient way to invest in your 20s. Not because I read it in some book, but because I lived it. I made the mistakes, I paid off the debt, I built the portfolio, and I am still building it every single day. I am not rich. I am not a guru. I am just a normal 27-year-old guy who figured out a system that works, and I want to share it with you. If you got value out of this, consider leaving a comment. Let me know what your biggest holding is and how much of your portfolio it makes up. I would love to hear about it. Maybe you have a company you believe in that I have never heard of. That would be cool to learn about. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. I put out videos like this every week, just talking about money investing and getting your life together in your 20s. No fluff, no fake promises. Just real talk from a regular guy who has been through it. Good luck on your investing journey. Take care of yourself, take care of your money, and remember, you have more time than you think. Use it wisely. Peace.